This is WCM's Park Update, a weekly show covering the outdoor hospitality industry, hosted by Ben Quiggle and Mike Gast. During each episode, you'll hear from special guests and campground experts on topics that will help your park flourish. WCM's Park Update is a production of Woodall's Campground Magazine.
Hi, I'm Ben Quiggle, editor of Woodall's Campground Magazine, and this is another edition of WCM's Park Update, sponsored by Midwest Electric Products. And I have a guest host today, Bob Zagami, who is pretty well known in the industry, especially the RV side of things. He co-hosts RVing in New England with John DePietro, who was recently on the show as well. So, Bob, it's nice to have you on.
Thanks, Ben. Glad to be here.
Yeah. And our guests today are Mark and Julie Bennett, who are also really well known, the founders of RVLove. They have a couple different books, Living the RV Life and RV Hacks, which I have RV Hacks, and it's really interesting. I don't own an RV, but I have the book, and now I have a lot of knowledge for when I finally do get my RV. So, but it's great to have you. Yeah, it's great to have you guys on.
It's great, Ben, because you'll be an expert by the time you buy the RV.
Yeah. So maybe it'll help me buy an RV too. So I'll know what I'm looking for and what I can handle. So I guess it's great to have you guys on. You guys have celebrated 10 years of RVLove, and I guess I was a little surprised that it's only been 10 years. I guess I don't know, maybe for you guys whether it felt longer or not, but I thought you guys had been doing it for a lot longer. But not to take away from 10 years, that's an extremely long time to be doing it too. So how did you guys fall in love with RVing, and how did you decide to travel, I guess?
Well, I think it was really we were pretty much newlyweds back then, and we wanted to travel a lot more, but we wanted to travel with our dog, and we also still were working. And so RVing was just such a wonderful way to be able to have the whole family go and travel while still working, and allowed us, with limited time off, be in all the places we wanted to go and experience it. You know, you park right at the Grand Canyon. As soon as you get off work, you're right there. So it's a really awesome way to see the world, see the country, and we've enjoyed it immensely. You know, traveled all 50 states within the first 3 years because we were traveling full time, and a little over 6 years full time, and then 3 years, almost 4 years part-time.
Almost 4 years part time, and that has flown by. Like it feels like, for you, it feels like it's been a long time. For us, it feels like it's actually flown by. And
wow.
In particular, even the last 4 years, which we've been back in a sticks and bricks, almost 2/3 of the amount of time we were full-time RVing, which is crazy, but I think it's because we've still spent quite a bit of that time RVing. So we haven't been full-time in our sticks and bricks all that time. The last trip, we were just out for 5 months over winter and spring. And so that was, almost half the year in our last trip. But,
yeah, so I think that's interesting. That you guys you were full-time RVing, and then now you're back in what you guys call sticks and bricks, which I always find fascinating because I live in a house. So, I know Mark Kepp, he stopped RVing. I think he was on the road for almost a decade, full-time RVing.
More, it was like 12, 13 years, a few more years than us with his family. Yeah, 2020 changed a lot, Ben, for the RV industry, for RVers. And I think that's when we happened across. We were not planning on stopping full-time RVing at all. We certainly had slowed our pace because, like so many people, were affected by the lockdowns in early 2020. And, something just didn't quite feel right. We couldn't put our finger on what, because there were so many things that weren't going right that year. It was just such a weird time. And we just happened across a place in an area that we fell in love with, and it was a very spontaneous decision. Within 48 hours, we were on a contract on a house. Or what the heck did we just do? And I think Mark Kepp was very similar. He ended up in Wyoming. We're in Colorado, and but both of us still travel extensively by RV. But it is really different, like being part-time RVers compared to full-time RVers. And that's been a really interesting experience for us. Just seeing it really is different. But what we love is that now we get to speak to both aspects of it, because full-time RVing is not for everybody. Only about, I think, 1.5% of all RVers. I think, don't quote me on those numbers, but or maybe 1.5 million. What is there? 10 million people with an RV now. Maybe nobody really knows the numbers because you can't track everybody properly. But roughly, still a pretty small but a very mighty group. They're very avid RVers, but part-timing is definitely different. Yeah. And both have their pros and both have their cons. But
did the fact that you had 5 RVs in the 10 years make it much easier to make the switch to the house, because you had seen a lot of different, you had 5 different types of RVs?
No, we only had 2 though when we were full-timing, Bob. We had 2 Class A motorhomes in the first 6.25 years. So
the part-time is when we had to switch them up so much because we had to keep reevaluating how we're doing it.
Yeah, it's a different decision, because then when you've got a home again, I mean, when we were full-time, we'd sold our home, so we didn't have the mortgage, we didn't have the 2 cars, so we simplified down to 1 car, and then we'd had an RV payment. But it's all
it's a lot easier to afford the bigger RV when you don't have the regular house expenses. But when you go back to having both, you got to reevaluate
double
that.
Expenses.
Yep. I guess what is the I think there's a lot of people out there that full-time, and then there's a lot that part-time, like what you mentioned. How does when you travel for the part-time, does it make you feel like you need to get the most out of this trip because it's only going to be for a little bit? Whereas if you're full-timing, maybe you have a little bit more time to explore those kinds of things, I guess.
I don't know. I think when we started full-timing, I think like most people that start doing that, you're excited, you want to go everywhere and see everything, and your travel pace is much faster. I mean, I can't speak for everybody. That's what it was for us. We know some people that travel at a slower pace than us as full-timers that just do a month at a time. And I want to say that they're friends that are still full-timing today that have, we think, done it really well with regular jobs, that it's really kept a very sustainable, healthy pace personally, financially, and for their work. Whereas we see some people just rush out and trying to pack everything in, and you can burn yourself out really quickly, again, personally and financially doing that. And I think because we went pretty well, you had a full-time job that you had, we always, all of our travels were planned around Mark's work and connectivity. So the first 3.5 years, I think it was a pretty to do all.
And generally, when we do go out, we still do go out for a longer period of time too. So it is a slower pace where we're not weekenders usually. When you're weekending, that's a very different style. We did that for a while with the small camper, and there's a lot of time packing and prepping for a little bit of time at the campsite. So.
We like going for longer periods, but I think like the last winter, we actually traveled at a really much slower pace and we enjoyed that. But, we've been doing it 10 years and we've seen all 50 states. There's still a lot to see, but we don't feel that urge to do that anymore, personally.
So did you take the RV to Hawaii? How do you see all 50 states in an RV? No, you couldn't?
48 states with the RV. We cruised to Alaska and we flew to Hawaii.
All right, I just had to double check. Did you guys, so when you guys decided, hey, we want to hit the road full-time RVing, did you guys decide then that you were going to start RVLove, or is that something that came about after you started RVing?
Well, it's pretty much at the same time. Yeah, we actually
I registered the domain in October of 2013.
Yeah, she registered the domain for RVLove long before we actually got the RV. And it's funny because in our book, we talk about that, where people say, oh, I don't have an RV yet, but I have my YouTube channel. I'm like, you don't need a YouTube channel to be an RVer. They don't need to be together.
But they watch a lot of channels that are inspiring to them. And, that's, and we were happy to share our journey with people. We didn't do our first YouTube video. I think it was about a few weeks after we hit the road.
But RVLove was mostly a hobby at first. And then when we started getting some traction and being able to, it was so rewarding knowing that we were helping other people and guiding them in their decisions. That's when we decided to get more and more involved in it, and became a full-time job for both of us about 3 years in. But it became a full-time job for Julie probably within 6 months of hitting the road. But then full time for both.
Did it surprise you that RVLove, the URL, was available?
Yes.
Yeah, a lot of people were surprised, but I remember Chris and Cherie from Technomadia were like, "How did you get that?"
I'm like, I just typed in to GoDaddy, and there it was. So I bought it. It was really lucky. Maybe someone else had forgot to renew it or something. I don't know, but it was pretty lucky.
It's interesting what URLs are out there. Actually, people just don't take the time to look for them. There's actually people who buy and sell them, but that is interesting.
I have a little domain addiction. If anyone wants to buy some really great RV related URLs, hit me up.
Yeah, it's interesting. So, and then I guess you started RVLove in 2014. You had quite a few years before COVID. Did COVID kind of turn you into kind of like, I don't know, all I can think of is elder statesman. Like you're the old, like the
we get called OGs now. People call us OGs.
OG?
And I had to Google it and see what's an OG, original gangster or something. It's funny, when we first started out, and we were the newbies and we were the young ones in the campground, and there were a lot of retired age folks that would say, how were you able to do this at this younger age? Because we were in our early mid-40s back then. Yeah. And then we can work from the road, and we had internet, and they found it quite fascinating. So, in a short period of time, really, it's just so common now, and now we feel like we're among the more
but that mature ones in the campground dramatically over the last 10 years, and even more so since 2020. In the last 4 years, that's accelerated because so many more people are able to work remotely after the pandemic. So that dramatically accelerated that, and that shifted the demographic we see in the campgrounds across the country.
A lot of
younger families,
and I think that was people's biggest struggle. It's like, I just don't know how I would do it with my job. My employer won't let me. But we've met a lot of people that were like pre-retirees, early retirees that just had a few years to go, that were able to approach their employer. This is pre-COVID, and say, look, I'm going to be retiring anyway. I want to still keep working. And we saw a real pattern with that, where a lot more employers were more flexible because they didn't want to lose that talent. They didn't want to lose that experience. And they knew they were going to be retiring anyway. They were on a timeline. So how can we work together and even keep these people, beyond the retirement age to work part-time or consulting, because there's so much knowledge, so much experience they didn't want to lose. So I think that's a great thing.
Yeah. And it's been interesting with the younger generation, post-COVID, some of them have to go back to the offices and stuff, but I think a lot more of them are looking for the remote jobs where they can do this RVing stuff more, whether it's full-time or even just like months at a time. Have you noticed people taking longer trips in an RV, maybe not doing full-time, but, multiple months, I guess?
Yeah.
I definitely think that flexibility has been opened up for a lot of people because of that remote work. It allows people to do that. And RVs are so comfortable now. I mean, they are like homes. So you have your washer dryer, because these young families that we talk to them, and they do laundry every day. So they got to be in full hookup sites.
We've never had a washer dryer in 10 years of RVing. We're not afraid to go to a laundromat, but we don't have kids. But, I think just to add to that, what we're seeing is a lot more people will park the RV, closer to home, where they can go and work from there during the week. And so they feel like we don't get a lot of vacation time here in America. I'm Australian, for anyone wondering what my accent is. So 4 weeks of vacation is standard. And so it's quite a shock to a lot of Americans to hear that. And so I think it's great that more people are able to get more life in their life. And even if you're, spending 3 or 4 days at the RV, you might have a local seasonal site. So we're seeing more people doing that too, because that can also be more affordable, because you're not having to spend all the money on the gas going back and forth, to our comment earlier about the packing and going on a trip, which is so much work. If you could just have your RV set up and you just jump in the car and you just get there. And I think we're seeing more people doing that. So campgrounds that are offering internet and Wi-Fi and those kinds of amenities are going to be attracting people like that too.
Going back to Ben's comment about the younger people going out on the road and being able to work that way, I think that COVID played a big advantage to the more mature people who are retiring, because it opens up a whole new opportunity for them. They don't have to dip into 401ks. They don't have to dip into the pension. There's enough consulting work out there to cover their daily cost. And the benefit, the same people who are complaining that the younger generations don't want to go back to an office, they're not complaining that they can get all this consulting work when they want it on an hourly basis.
Yeah, we've definitely seen that. We have some friends who they were retiring and they thought that they were going to need to be limited on their income. And then they've turned out having so much consulting work that they've vastly exceeded all the revenue projections they had for almost 10 years now.
Never had to touch their investments at all.
Never had to touch their investments at all.
They're 8 years now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 8 years on the road. So I totally agree with you, Bob, that that's been a great opportunity for that demographic as well.
Yeah, it's been amazing. We have to recognize our sponsor, Midwest Electric Products, and then we'll be back in a minute with Mark and Julie Bennett. Hi, welcome back to WCM's Park Update, and we are talking with Julie and Mark Bennett, the founders of RVLove. And, before the break, we were talking a little bit about just how they got into the industry, how they developed RVLove, how they fell in love with RVing and have been to all 50 states. And we chatted a little bit about remote working and how that's kind of grown RVing as well and allowed more people to enjoy RVs. I guess, one of the things, we hear at Woodall's is, the RV site pricing. I guess, how has COVID impacted, prices on RV sites? And, do you guys see complaints from RVers, or are they getting pretty used to the pricing at this point, I guess?
I think that nobody likes it when the prices go up, right? Oh. But laws of economics, it's supply and demand. When the things started booming in 20 and 2021, prices went up, and the prices for campground owners went up too. Utilities, and they had trouble finding staffing, and I think there was a lot more demand and expectation for higher quality amenities at the campgrounds. Well, that costs money for the campgrounds, and they have to pass that on somewhere. So I think it's a tricky situation for campgrounds. Exciting because there's so much opportunity in RVing and RV travel, and RV camping is very much in the mainstream now. I think it was a little on the fringe before, but it's now very much, it's in all the major media were talking about it for, since 2020. So it's very much in the mainstream. We're seeing that with, companies like Hilton, coming in and auto camp and getting into the industry. But campground owners campers are wanting more amenities, which cost more money, and then the prices go up, and then the campers complain that the prices are going up. But
But it is interesting, to Julie's point, that it's been attracting a lot of the big players in the hospitality industry and the hotel industry, that they're coming into this space. Because they're realizing that some of these campsites are the same rate that they had for a room inside their hotel. And they just need to provide electric and water, not cleaning and not heating and cooling. So
shower conditioner, shampoo
bottles and whatnot. But so that's been an interesting change to that as well.
But I think some of the people like us who've been RVing for a long time, we don't always want those fancy amenities and bells and whistles. Sometimes we do. Or, I think a great example is, and this is a park we've talked about many times before with you, Bob, is Camp Margaritaville in Auburndale. And that is 5-star up there, and we have stayed there a couple of times, and we love it. Our dog loves it, and it is definitely more expensive. But it's interesting, when we're there, we don't worry about the cost and the expense. We never think, wow, we paid X amount. We're like, gosh, that was such a great time. They just nailed it. And I think that's really inspiring to see if that's the way that a lot more RV parks will go, and being able to offer not just amenities, but I think that sense of community and connection with the tiki bar. If anyone's not familiar with it, they've got a tiki bar, beautiful fire pit areas. There's a lot of opportunities for campers to get together and connect and meet. And that's what we love to do, right? Not just be in your RV and keep to yourself.
But a lot of our travels too, remember, we were working full time. And so for us, lower amenities are not a big deal for us. We have power and water. We're inside working most of the time. We're not sitting out on the patio enjoying an amazing view,
as
or
full-time working RVers.
Full-time working RVers. So it's a very different aspect for us. You know, if you're a vacationer, you're a traveler, you're going for a specific experience, I think you're going to be a lot more willing to pay that extra fees. But for us, you know, and when we go to like the Florida Keys, if we're paying a lot for a site, we will intentionally work less that time to be able to enjoy more of what we're doing. But in generally, if we're working when we're on the road, we look for less expensive opportunities because we're just there to work anyways.
Well, I've been in a situation at least in the Northeast, where a lot of the luxury campgrounds and higher end campgrounds, the prices are coming down, just as they are on RVs. They escalated everything during COVID. Now all of a sudden they're coming down and back to reality. I think you're going to see a trend at that on the higher end campgrounds, because I know some of them had trouble filling all the slots this year in the winter, and they're going to have to kind of normalize them. I don't know, Ben, have you seen that or have you written about that at all?
I mean, we are going to be doing some stuff, checking in on the industry. I know it's definitely different pockets of the country that have experienced like a slower season. I know California parks to some degree have as well, but I don't know. There's also parks that are being slammed. It'll be interesting, especially with these parks who are heavily invested in expanding and stuff, whether they can have the capability to lower prices too much if the demand does go down, because they still have to pay for everything. So I don't know. Do you think it's if you were an RVer a long time before COVID versus an RVer since COVID, are the newer RVers more likely to complain about the price, or is it maybe the longer term RVers that maybe remember when the prices were a lot cheaper, I guess? What's your
probably thought? Because they knew what it was like, whereas remember the newer RVers are used to hotels and Airbnbs. Yeah. So they weren't used to regular campground prices and your mama pop campgrounds. You can still find campgrounds under $30 a night. You have to pick and choose, and you have to find where they are, but they're out there. Even some county parks. We stayed at a county park in Florida for $15 a night just a couple of years ago. But it doesn't have the amenities, but the location was great. But yeah, I think the newer ones, they're also the ones that I think that are demanding the higher standard amenities. Whereas a lot of the, I don't want to call us old timers, but the original, RVers who were used to paying less. But RVing's just not as affordable as it used to be. I think that's one of the challenges right now.
The whole space is more expensive than it used to be. But as far as campground pricing, I mean, my comment would be it's better to have a full campground at $50 a night than it is to have a half empty campground at $60. So because the math is the math, so it's better to fill it. So
and that's something
they're spending money on more than just the site usually.
Yeah, and that's something that the park industry has been getting a lot better at, is the demand pricing, which also aggravates some of the RVers too at times. But I guess it is what it is. It's just been interesting to see all the amenities that have been coming in, and a lot of them are corporate parks are kind of driving this, or new investors. Have you guys, what's your thoughts on all the new investors coming into the campground industry? I know when I read different Facebook forums, people are afraid about, the industry losing its character, I guess, going from like small mom and pop campgrounds to like these larger groups like Sun Outdoors. I guess, are you guys afraid of the same thing, or do you think it's been great to have these larger
We're afraid of it. I think in general, people just don't like change. I just think it's pretty universal. With anything changing, it makes people uncomfortable. But I think with any change, there's an opportunity. There's always going to be pros and cons to every situation. The good thing about having bigger investors like a Sun Outdoors or anyone else coming in and buying them up is then they would hopefully have the funds to be able to maintain the campgrounds at certain standards and improve the amenities, which is what upgrade the electrical systems. I know there's a lot of demand now with the increase in electric vehicles. It's putting pressure on campgrounds as well to be able to meet that demand. But I think we're always the kind of people, we look at things, we always look at the pros and the cons. It's never an absolute, it's good or bad. It's absolute. Like everything's black and white. I mean, so everything's gray. It's not black and white. It's always gray and they're different shades. But
and RVing is all about being adaptable. But I think there's a customer for everything. We have friends that who want to only have a small mom and pop shop that they can call to make their reservations, and other people want only digital, don't want to talk to anybody. And so there's two different customers, and there's a customer and a campground for everybody out there.
I'm a little bit concerned on the corporate acquisitions of the campgrounds. Many of those are public companies, so they're going to be less likely to drop the prices. They're going to have to deliver on that investment. I mean, we just had a KOA up in Lebanon, Maine. Been run for years by the same people, and it just sold for $14.5 million. That's not a mom and pop that bought it.
No.
And when you have that kind of an upper end, then you got to deliver the higher end customers. And if the market demand goes down, they're not going to drop the price.
Because of it's tough, because I think a lot of people thought that owning a campground was a great retirement business. When I retire, I'll get a campground, nice, relaxing. But I think since 2020, they've learned that it's not always relaxing, and the different kind of campers and the demands became pretty stressful. I understand, for a lot of those campground owners, understandably so. So especially if you're buying it as a retirement, second career, then are you really wanting to deal with all of that drama, that headache, the legalities, the risk, all of that kind of a thing? I totally get it. I think it's
because the corporates are hard to compete with that, because they have the infrastructure, so they already have a legal team, they already have all those things, so wrapped in.
What our show is designed for park owners. I guess we love to have RVers on and just ask, what's something that you wish the industry could do better or would take a look at, I guess? Is there anything that frustrates you?
Campgrounds?
Yeah.
Or the RV campgrounds?
About campgrounds and RV parks, like checking in, anything that frustrates you about the process, I guess.
The booking system. There are so many different booking softwares out there, and it isn't like going to Expedia and finding those kind of lodging options. It can be quite time consuming and laborious. Many companies like Spot Tonight have got a platform and they're trying to bring that together where you can go to one place and book that, which is great. But I think that's the thing, is that all the different booking softwares and the different ways of booking. And to Mark's point earlier, we're just in this 1 month, we've had the same conversation with two completely different demographics of people. I will only book a campground that if I can call and talk to somebody because I want to know it's suitable for my rig. And the other one's like, I don't want to talk to anybody. If I can't do it online, I'm not interested. So that was in 1 month. We had that same conversation, completely different needs. I think the booking system is the consistency and the transparency, and people want to be able to see what the prices are.
I wouldn't want to be the campground owner. Every month when I get Woodall's Campground magazine, and I love it. You do a great job, Ben. And I go through it, and every other page is a software. I mean, poor campground owner. It's got to be 10 or 12 pages.
It's got to be so overwhelming. Yeah. And a lot of campground owners aren't necessarily that tech savvy. I mean, there's a huge learning curve on that, and they may not, especially if you're a mom and pop shop. We've been to a campground, I think it was in Nashville, and they literally had a big paper reservation system, and it was like an eraser and a pencil, and they did the whole thing manually, and they loved it, and it worked. And anytime they tried to use something else, they said it just didn't work. I'm like, I mean, there's going to be a day where that isn't happening anymore. But
we've got a small campground in Maine that does that.
And a lot of people really love that.
If you want, you can leave a telephone message, but you get in and it's the book. And if you ask them, well, what about next year? Can I do next year? They flip the pages over, and it's all manual, totally manual.
Yeah. Hopefully they don't lose that book.
But there's a lot of RV parks and campgrounds out there, and it wasn't until we really started RVing, like, oh my gosh, there's so many signs as you're driving down the road, and realizing what you didn't. It's that, what is it, the the reticular activating system is turned on, that suddenly you're becoming an RVer and you're seeing campgrounds popping up everywhere. But I think campgrounds, being visible and letting people know that you're there and having good reviews is really important. Everyone's looking online now, so get good reviews, get people in to talk about it and to invite people to do that, so that people know what they can expect when they come to stay at your property.
True.
Yeah, I think it is interesting, the spectrum of park owners and how they manage their parks and different things like that. It's just there's different park owners who really embrace technology and different ones that do the pen and paper still. So really interesting, folks. And it's just an interesting industry. So
it's always changing.
What?
It's changing. But it's everything is right. Everything. I don't think there's any industry that isn't changing right now, and technology is driving a lot of it.
Yeah, I don't do phone calls, so I can't I don't like to do phone calls, so I won't call anybody that just has a phone number. It has to at least have an email.
There's a lost customer right there.
No, I'll have an email, but I don't do the rest. So, well, it was great talking with you. And we've got to get off here, but it was great talking with you, Julie and Mark. I guess, how do people find you, and how do people dive into more of what you guys do, I guess?
Yeah, we're RVLove.com. You could say it in an American accent so people understand it.
RVLove.com, yeah. You can find all of our social and everything through there.
Yeah, RVLove Travel on all the social media, so you can just pretty much Google it and you'll find everything there. But yeah, feel free to connect, reach out, email, send us a message on social. We'd love to chat. And thank you for having us on.
Yeah, thank you,
Ben
and
thank Bob. You, Bob. Always good to see you. And thank you, everyone, for listening. And
well, thanks for coming on. And I think it's great to catch up with RVers and everything. So it's great to have you guys on the show, exploring different sides of the industry. So thanks for coming on. So
thank you.
And we will be back again next week.
Thank you for listening to WCM's Park Update, a production of Woodall's Campground Magazine. Join us for a new show each Tuesday at 3 p.m. Eastern on Facebook, YouTube, and wherever you listen to podcasts. Follow us on Facebook and LinkedIn for daily news and updates, and subscribe to our news feed on our website at woodallscm.com.